So Walker Buehler leaves the Midwest like a week and a half ago, and then now it decides to turn into the frozen tundra. Did you do this? Like, is this something you planned? Did you leave your faucet dripping in Lexington? What's the word?
Yeah, we brought the cold with us here. It's been cold in LA as well.
What's cold
Uh
in LA?
I mean it's like in the 30s in the morning. Okay.
Really?
A little wild.
I was just in Santa
Um
Barbara. I was back home, and the coldest it got was 58, and it just felt so much better. Now I'm sitting here in New York, and it's like 31 degrees during the
yeah,
day.
you guys are about to get snowed in and all that, huh?
Yeah, not ideal.
I've got like snow or I guess condensation that's freezing and turning like into a white powder substance
Hmm.
on the inside of my window. So maybe that's an apartment building problem. We'll see. I'm excited to talk to you about LA living and the Dodgers and all that jazz. You've been working out at the ballpark, and that's kind of what I want to start with. Um, I know there was a video that you posted on your Instagram story that we saw you throwing. I know Lux has been there too. I mean, Otani's been around the ballpark. Who have you seen in terms of 2024 teammates that's working out at Dodger Stadium recently?
Yeah, those guys, Otani, Lexi's there. CT has been in and out. I think he went to Hawaii with his wife and new kid. Glass now stopped in for a couple days. I think he's coming back at the end of the month, maybe, or something like that. So yeah, there's been a few guys kind of in and around, some minor league guys, and yeah, it's a good environment. It's obviously, the environment that we're kind of used to, but obviously something I haven't been in every day in a couple of years. So yeah, we got a good spot and good people around us.
When you're practicing, right, on the field, do you just kind of look around sometimes and be like, holy shit, look at all these fucking good ass players?
Yeah, I mean, the weirdest thing being in that stadium is there not being 40,000 people there,
Yeah.
when it's empty. But yeah, I mean, I think it'll probably set in kind of the additions and stuff um in spring training typically is when you start really like feeling that, I guess. But also some subtractions too. That's part of this. We've added all these guys, but we've lost some guys or don't have guys back yet. So we'll see what kind of shakes out with all of that, and then the guys that are rehabbing. And yeah, spring training is an exciting time. It's a different thing. You walk in, we're used to kind of walking in there being 25 guys, and spring when you got 60 guys in there on the first day, it's pretty cool.
I saw the video that you posted, and obviously that was like field level. That was intentional. Someone was filming you throw. And
Yep.
then I saw the weird like drone footage and like you got people like it looked like it was near or on the roof shooting in. Is it like a top secret thing? Is there media availability and you guys just happen to be practicing? Like, how are we getting these weird TMZ type shots of the Dodgers
No,
practicing?
I don't really know who's up there and who's putting them out. I haven't really watched the shortstop ones yet, but no, I mean they run tours all day there, and we'll see these tour groups and stuff. We've been packed up with people, walking through the stadium and stuff. So I assume it kind of comes from there. But yeah, I mean we're not doing anything top secret. We're kind of throwing and running and normal shit. It's not nothing crazy.
Right.
It was bordering along the lines of thirst trapping Dodgers fans because the views were looking that good. But the big one, and at least that what we're looking at here, is the ball's coming out of your hand pretty nice. How's the arm feel?
It is. No, I feel good, man. I think we're getting close to kind of starting that full ramp up deal, and that's always kind of the hardest part. But I've had a good off season and kept some good weight on and feel strong. So yeah, here in a couple weeks we'll probably get on the mound and kind of move forward from there. So things are looking good so far.
That was a whole deal at the end of the season, right? The good way, bad way conversation and the brick shithouse comment. I remember that vividly. But um, how have you kind of maintained what you picked up during like last year? Because I know the beginning of the rehab process was similar to the first time, but I mean, we've talked about it actually a decent bit, like hot tub, cold tub, things like that.
Yeah.
You're in a new spot in LA. I know you had it in Lexington, like you legit
Yeah.
had a cold tub in your home. Do you have one in the place you're in LA, or is it like, hey, when I go to Dodger Stadium, I'm clocking in, I'm getting my work in, and I'm doing all that there, and then I'm going to go home.
Yeah, I mean, every place is kind of different in terms of the setup, but I have a blue cube here. We haven't fired it up yet. I think just having it at the stadium and going to the stadium in the morning is kind of when I do that stuff. So I don't really need it quite yet, but as we get in the season, that'll probably be something that I start using more and more here. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, day-to-day operation is what we do at Dodger Stadium. So everything we need is there. And yeah, it works well for us.
Talking about your routine off the field, on the field, right? You're getting hyped up again. What does that look like over the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully as close to normal as anyone is going through right now in terms of building up and getting ready to be on the mound. And we're not 100% on the schedule in terms of when I'm going to be like back in the rotation quite yet, but just got to keep putting myself in a decent position to be as healthy as I can be, and be ready to throw whenever we decide on that, just based on the innings and stuff like that. So, we got some exciting stuff, the Korea trip, and then coming back for Freeway and then getting going. So, yeah, some stuff up in the air. We'll see what happens.
I know before that you guys are at Camelback for 5 weeks, I want to say, with games, and I think that's going to be the first time that people can pop on Sportsnet LA or pop on MLB TV, and I've kind of been the sucker for that since I was a freshman in high school. When I first got MLB TV, I was like, I need baseball back so badly, and I know people are going to be clamoring to see Walker Buehler back on the mound in a Dodger uniform at Camelback, whether it be a 2 inning spurt or a 4 inning spurt at the end of spring. We're like, Marcus Stroman in a Yankee uniform. It's your first chance to look at them unofficially. It's like NFL preseason. Do you guys have like a spring training plan? I assume you're going to be throwing somewhat consistently in the spring.
Yeah, yeah, I think hopefully I'll get into some Cactus League games. I think that's kind of important. I just don't know, all these things are scheduled, right? And an inning here and two the next and two again and whatever. So, we have like a kind of a date in mind that we want to get me back playing for our team. So we're kind of trying to still reverse engineer it all the way back to when I need to start, given where I'm at right now. So, everything seems to be lining up kind of how we wanted, and that's the beauty of finally being healthy and getting out here a little early so that we can all kind of talk and figure it out together, I guess.
Gotcha.
And the Dodgers have been chock full of storylines, all winter long. But quite possibly the biggest one is that the Dodgers acquired Jackson Ferris. So have
Yes.
you scheduled a meetup yet? Jackson Ferris, Walker Buehler. You have to get at least one picture together.
And
The
Matthew
internet would go
Broderick.
crazy. And Matthew Broderick.
That it's interesting. It's not too often you've got that kind of combo, but yeah, I don't know much about him yet. I haven't seen him yet, obviously, but I've heard it's a talented little left-handed arm. So, you never know. I know he's 19, but guys get up there quick these days. So we'll see what happens.
You got to
Not
show him
little.
around LA.
Yeah. He's got that Slender Man type build, dude. Like his arms never end, and it's 97 from the left side. So yeah, I would like the photo at some point. I feel like it's pretty easy to convince Matthew Broderick to show up to Dodger Stadium. So maybe like a Monday night or something, because Ferris will be in Rancho, I assume. You, Ferris, and Matthew Broderick for a photo op. Can you do that for us?
Yeah, I imagine I'll probably throw it at Rancho at some point, so we might have to make that happen.
They got to pull up Ferris just for the gag. Like, at least just give him like a 10-day, at least for just like a weekend
10-day.
The
series.
NBA contract.
Yeah, the NBA
Yeah.
contract.
Exhibit 10, that's the other NBA contract. Yeah, give a partial guarantee. Hey, you're gearing up to be a dad in a couple weeks, and we were talking about names before we hit the record button, but I'm just curious about daddy duty in Major League Baseball. And I know that some of your closest friends during your Dodger time have been on daddy duty during the season. They've probably been on newborn daddy duty during the season. What kind of advice has Clayton Kershaw given you? Is it good advice, terrible advice, and any other dads that have
Um,
offered their wisdom?
yeah, I mean, I think it's a big let the wife handle a lot of it, and they probably know better than we do. But I think some of them it comes supernatural too, and I think we're just gonna have to kind of figure it out as we go. But luckily, she should come near the end of the month, so we'll have a little time to figure it out before we get in the season and uh, kind of survive in advance, I guess.
You have a lot of good dads on the team. Is there anyone on the Dodgers that you don't want watching over your newborn?
Um, I got no comment on that. I think
Yeah.
we're kind of late to the party, so there's not many guys that haven't gone through it themselves. But yeah, I'm gonna plead the fifth.
Plead the fifth.
You sure? You've got time to think about it if you
You can talk shit. No one's listening.
Um, hey, I did want to get into kind of the free agent conversation because you mentioned that there are guys that are not back yet. Um, and there are guys that, we're expecting to sign nine-figure deals in the starting pitching market and in the relief market that we're hearing like nothing on. And one of them is your guy Bellinger. Like Belly, we're sitting here and it's like, when is this domino gonna fall? Like we thought Otani was gonna be the kickstarter, and then you go to the starting pitching market and it's Montgomery, it's Snell, Stroman took a long time too. Jordan Hicks was apparently part of the starting pitching market. But like, why do you think some of these guys are taking this long? I remember Arrieta. It took until like mid-spring for him to sign that multi-year deal with Philly.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, obviously, with kind of where contracts are going, you're seeing a little bit more division in terms of these huge, long, big boy deals, and then these shorter, I wouldn't say super high IAV, but or AAV, but you're getting kind of two kinds of deals, and I don't know obviously what offers are being made to what guys and whatnot, but guys just may not be lumped in that same bracket that they think they are, right? And I think obviously the difference in kind of traditional starting pitching versus what it kind of looks like now, say what it looked like in the 90s or what it looks like now, it's a little more divisive in terms of some guys are throwing really high quality innings, but at a lower rate of innings, and some guys are trying to eat innings and not quite with the same quality. So you think maybe the matches in terms of, oh, this team needs a starting pitcher. Well, what kind? And so you start getting more and more divisive looks at guys, and um, age and youth, and the guys that are coming up are better probably than they ever had before. And so you just got teams kind of weighing things differently. And it's not as simple as maybe it used to be 10, 12 years ago, where there's four big boy teams that need a starting pitcher and there's one big starting pitcher. There's multiples and different looks on guys. And so the free agency market's hard, man. We predict all the time what we think is going to happen and whatnot, but I think a lot of people are probably waiting to see if any of these guys are going to get traded,
Yeah.
which hasn't happened. So, sign or trade, and nothing's happening right now. So I'm sure as the season kind of creeps up, things will start rolling.
I was going to say Peter made a good point last week. It was we predict all these things. We predict where the big ticket free agents are going to go, and we try and get creative, and then they all go to fucking your team. They all go
Yeah.
to the Dodgers.
Yeah, they just go to the Dodgers, and we're like, "Ooh, what would be cool if it went to this team? Look how smart we sound." Dodgers just offered him $9 billion, so throw that out the window.
I
No
mean,
comment.
I understand.
I have a question too, because you're going to be a free agent after the year too. I feel like there's this cat and mouse game, right, between these agents and these teams. And if you're a pitcher right now on January 14th, right, we think it's getting late, but the reality is that you still have a couple of months before these guys report. So if you were in the position on January 14th, you probably feel totally fine. You don't feel rushed, right? Because we still have so much time.
Yeah, I mean, likely whatever team you're with, you're still opening day is still the same time, right? So you're kind of backdating where you need to be and when you need to be on the mound to feel good. And so I think largely you know, obviously you have a preference on what team you're going to or you're on, but in terms of like logistically throwing wise, everything's the same. So, you know, those guys are kind of standing where they are and the teams are as well. So, you know, at some point these guys are going to sign. It's not like these guys are going to go unemployed, but yeah, I don't think too much changes really.
Do you have an internal clock? Do you feel like you will have an internal clock where it's, you know, we are X amount of days away from pitchers and catchers reporting? Like when do you get nervous if you're not communicating with that catcher? Like I'm just trying to put myself in Jordan Montgomery's shoes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, you know, I would love to have a team identity by February 10th if I report on February
Yeah.
22nd. Is there a moment of panic, do you think?
I mean, obviously I've never gone through it, right? But
Right.
you know, at some point, like our game is pretty simple and everyone's so advanced in terms of the data and kind of how we're attacking people. And, you know, there is some familiarity that first bullpen that the guy's probably not going to be framing every pitch perfectly just
Right.
because he doesn't know what's going to do. But, you know, these guys are so good and I think that's probably a little overblown in terms of you want to have relationships with guys but at some point if you've gotten to be a free agent, like you've been around and you kind of know of your catchers and they know somebody and those relationships can kind of come quick and especially when you've got opening day around the corner. So for me, I don't think that would be as big a concern.
Yeah, Jack, I think Walker makes a really good point. If Blake Snell can dominate with Gary Sanchez behind the plate, then really anything is possible at this point for him.
Gary
Um,
Sanchez and Mets fame. Yep.
yeah. Is there maybe a pitcher out on the market that you're just surprised hasn't signed yet that you thought he would be one of the big tickets right after Otani? Not to say he's the best pitcher available or whatever like that, just a pitcher that you're surprised hasn't signed yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think Blake is probably you know, seen as the number one guy. Obviously, you know, if you wanted to talk him versus Yamamoto, that would maybe be a discussion, but he's coming off winning a Cy Young but sometimes that's the hardest one to get done, right? There's value in, okay, you're worth at least this, but how far can that go? And maybe those are the discussions they're having. So, you know, I don't know. I think he was probably the logical first guy or biggest signing. I guess you can talk about him and Bellinger on the position, you know, position player versus pitcher thing. But yeah, I mean, I think this kind of week or 2 week lull that we've been in is somewhat surprising, but at the end of the day, this stuff kind of happens every year and we just kind of forget about it because everyone ends up in a place. And so, you know, I think we'll see where he ends up, but yeah, I think he's probably the surprising.
Call it a lull all you want, man. Jordan Hicks has Peter in my brain in a pretzel, like trying to figure that out. And I tried to do this on the intro. Tell me if I'm missing somebody clearly, because obviously the starter to high leverage relief pipeline is totally alive. And with Hicks, the name that's synonymous with him is Aroldis Chapman. And Chapman was starter all the way through Louisville. Then he became one of the best closers of this generation. Wade Davis went from starter to closer. Zach Duke, not a good starter, went to a really good reliever for a good bit there. The one that jumped to our mind was Smoltz. Smoltz went starter to reliever, back to starter for a couple years. Is there anybody that jumps to your mind that goes reliever to starter in their career that you can remember?
You guys don't have one?
Well, Seth Lugo.
Seth
Yeah,
Lugo.
Lugo's the one that I can really remember. Yeah, he was gonna be my go-to.
Besides that, it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, here at the end of the day, most of these guys, like in the minor leagues, are starters anyway. So, you know, that jump from starter to reliever and back and whatever, like it's happened a couple times in most of these guys' careers. Like they weren't relievers on their high school teams, right? So, yeah, I can't really think of much of it, but you know, most guys that get to the major league level have started at some point. So, yeah, I really can't think of any. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
I would have thought there would have been another one.
Do you think it's obviously probably not easy to transition back there. If you do it for, you know, a year or two, it's probably a seamless transition back. It's like, hey, I was starting through AAA. The opening at the big league level was as a setup guy. I did that really well for a couple of years. Now I'm going back to a starter. I know Crochet is going to try and do that in Chicago. Maybe
Mhm.
Brash does that some point in Seattle down the line.
Mm.
But Hicks has been like a good reliever for 6 years. Like he was a reliever
Yeah.
his entire career, hits the market, signs a deal as a starter.
Yeah.
Like, how difficult do you think that is to flip that switch back on?
Yeah, I mean, if you read the lines on the contract and kind of just knowing Farhan a little bit from his time in LA, like I think they're giving him every chance to be a starter, but the level of reliever that he has been in St. Louis is that kind of 10, 12, $15 million AAV as a reliever, right? So I think the assumption is that we're going to sign you at your floor value, right? Like, okay, if that level reliever, Jordan Hicks gets 4 for 44, and you're like, oh, as a reliever, they're like, okay, that's fine. But I think for him personally, it's like, but we're going to let you try and start, and there's some value in that for him, maybe, and obviously for the team, if it works out, then there's value in that. So maybe that was a discussion to get the third or fourth year or whatever from one side, but I don't think it's as surprising as you would kind of think of it, looking at it through the lens of like the dollar figure and the way the contract is set up.
If you were to give him any advice, what would it be?
No, I mean he's been through the arm stuff and obviously we know kind of the talent in terms of, throws balls 105 or whatever it was,
Nasty.
but
102 mile an hour bullet.
yeah, I mean I think the big thing is like that ball moves a lot, and so sign with the Giants. I don't really love the Giants, so I don't need to give him a whole lot of advice, but like there's obviously some talent there that isn't necessarily all about velocity. And so I think that's something that he'll maybe have to temper, maybe not. Obviously, guys are now throwing a million all the time, but yeah, I think they're gonna give him every chance. And they obviously do a lot of mix and matching over there anyway with Stripling and Alex Wood, both guys that I played with and kind of have seen in those hybrid roles. Like if that's what he ends up doing, then that's what he ends up doing. I think they're very comfortable over there with that kind of mix and match, two or three guys to get through two or three games. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense.
From a pitching nerd lens, can you explain to me why 102 with like that much sinking movement doesn't get as much whiff as other like crazy fastballs? So Hicks is 102, 103 with
Yeah.
sink. Gratterall, your teammate, throws
Yeah.
102. It moves like crazy, and yet it's like 7 Ks per nine. I know a
Yeah.
ton of fans have questions about it. Can you just explain the physics behind like not punching out the world with that?
Yeah. I would typically, I think there's kind of two ways to look at it. So if a ball is sinking, right, and it's doing this move, either right to left, left to right, down, however you want to talk about it, the idea is that your eyes can see multiple sides of the ball. So if it's moving down and to the right, you can see the inside and the top, as opposed to a four seam fastball, you're likely only going to see the top or the inside of it just because there's no movement. There's some flaws in that theory, but I've been told that previously. I think also guys are throwing so hard and the ball's moving late. And then if you really think if that ball's moving this far over the last 5 feet, like that's enough to hit your bat at any point, right? Like the barrel's going to be where the barrel is. If the ball's moving this much, it almost feels like there's more area that you can touch the ball, right?
Right.
Um,
Which is why the
Yeah,
ground
I
ball
think-
rate would be so high.
yeah, right. Or you'd think that if even if you're telling yourself to swing under all these pitches, right? And you do, like if you swing under a four seamer, you're just gonna miss. If this thing's sinking and you're trying to swing under it, you might clip it or foul it off or whatever. So I think there's just a little more margin for error. Um, the other way to think of it is like a cutter, right? The cutter is largely not a pitch that is designed for swing and miss. It's to get off the barrel. And so much in the same way. Like you're going to get these weaker contact, but a lot more lot higher contact rate. So I think of the sinker kind of similarly in that they kind of profile the same way.
And that's why I think Blake Treinen is the greatest reliever of all time, because he has that same kind of bowling ball fastball, and yet he's striking out 11 per 9. Like he is
Yeah.
just different. You got to be excited to have him back in the pen.
Yeah, I mean his slider is definitely one of the better ones out there, but yeah, it's
Maybe
a big man, throws hard, and his stuff moves, differently. It just moves a little bit more angry than some other guys, and
I like that.
yeah, he's been really
Moves angry.
successful. He's been really successful for a long time throwing the sinker, and we got him to throw some four seamers that kind of get some people off of stuff. And yeah, I mean when he's healthy, he's really really impressive and fun to watch. So we're excited to have him back, and hopefully he's feeling good.
When you think when you think a pitch moving angry, aside from trying and sinker, what other pitch jumps to mind?
The brash sliders like that. There's a lot of pitches like that. We look at all like this sweeper stuff. Not many of these sweepers move kind of angry, right? I think the old school sliders are kind of more what you would be thinking of, or these running heaters. The left-handed reliever for Philly, what was that guy's name?
Alvarado.
Alvarado, like that, like those balls move weird. Diego Castillo used to throw fastballs that acted like that.
Yohan Duran. Yohan Duran,
yeah.
every pitch of his is angry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Splinker.
I got a Lexington native Chaz Rowe slider was like that, where it would just keep going. But it, there's keeping going, and then there's the ones that look like they stay the same velo all the way through. Even you can talk about Kirsch, like that slider that he throws kind of does some things that just not everyone can do. And when I say move angry, you think of guys that break bats, right? Like that's kind of the thing. So, some guys have it. I wouldn't necessarily say my stuff is super angry stuff. But you think of some of it's spin base. If you got to really spin it or not spin it much to break a lot of bats, I think. And I'm probably somewhere in the middle there. So there's different ways to look at it, but I think definitely some good examples in there.
A great example, I think, is Tyler Glasnow. His slider and curveball or whatever that thing is moves in an angry way. And I know you kind of touched on it briefly. You guys are at Dodger Stadium. You've seen him. Have you guys gotten a chance to kind of pick each other's brain, give him the lowdown of LA, any of that good stuff?
No, not a ton. I mean, he's from around here too, so he kind of knows what's going on. He asked me a couple places to look for places to live, and he kind of already had, the places that most guys live pegged. So he didn't need too much help from me.
Is he just living in a dorm at UCLA?
I think so.
That's what you guys do, right?
Yeah, we just live in the dorms.
Well, you got one of the RA suites, right? You got the room advisor on the end of that hall.
Ensuite bathroom.
That's awesome.
You just got to do some chores to earn the suite.
It's amazing. What's on your agenda this week? You got anything good going? You're hoping you'll be going to SoFi in a little bit, right? If everything lines up with the Rams W.
Yeah, we'll see. I think there's an outside chance that, I think the Niners have to lose, which seems doubtful, but yeah, we'll watch this Rams game tonight. A lot of cool storylines in that game as well. Obviously, we had the Tyreek Miami thing, or Tyreek Kansas City thing last night, but Jared Goff and Stafford flip. So yeah, we'll see how that one goes.
Yeah. How was Will Ferrell and Mookie at the Kings game? Was that hilarious?
Yeah, they hung out more than I hung out with them. We kind of got out of there pretty quick, but no, those Kings games are fun, man. I remember going to a lot of we had a minor league hockey team back home when I was growing up. So my wife and I have gone to a couple games since we've been here and enjoyed it for sure.
Is hockey your second favorite sport? Like if you never became a pitcher, would there be another sport that you would try and go after? Or generally
I played 1 year of lacrosse. I actually really liked it. And it was funny at the time. That was like you played baseball or lacrosse. They like hated each other. But I played lacrosse, obviously golf, but I don't think I quite have the frame to play at basketball or anything like that. But no, I've never been good on ice skates, so I don't think hockey was really in the cards.
what
You
about
don't-
just watch?
Oh, like in person, hockey's probably my favorite sport to go watch.
So much fun.
Yeah, it's wild. Like probably the biggest difference between the TV product and the live product, I would think, would be hockey.
You don't think you have like an ounce of Ricky Rubio in you? Like you don't think you can just get on the floor and like see it differently?
No, I think that has been proven years and years and years of my childhood that I do not have any Ricky Rubio in me.
Dan, that's a Midwest thing too. Baseball and lacrosse, they constantly butt heads anywhere because
Yeah.
it's like baseball has this high and mighty feeling of, oh, you weren't good at this, so you
Yeah.
went to play this.
And it's funny because it's largely the same like movements. Like
Right.
they're both super rotational. Like the guys that score in lacrosse are the guys that can like spin their body the fastest. Like,
Right.
But yeah, had we played fall in the had we played lacrosse in the fall, I would have played probably through high school. I loved playing lacrosse.
Cool.
It was so funny. Growing up here in Santa Barbara, lacrosse wasn't a thing. We didn't even get lacrosse till my senior year of high school, and all like the people who weren't playing any other sports would just play lacrosse. So I always thought
Yeah.
lacrosse was lame. And then I went to Syracuse, and lacrosse is the coolest thing there. Just flipped me on my head because I was
Yeah.
like, this is such a lame sport. And then I go there, it's like, oh wait, it's like cool, I guess.
It's cool. You buy into lax. It's really cool.
I
Yeah,
started
it's a
trying.
fun game.
Do you expect to talk lacrosse on the Just Baseball show, Walker?
I didn't think we'd ever get there.
Me neither. I'm
I've
kind
been
of glad
holding
we
it
did.
in all these months.
Really, you're like the meme of the kid with like the forehead vein popping, like holding it at the desk. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
All
That's
right,
me.
love it, Walker. You are the man. We'll talk to you soon. Yeah.
Yep. Sounds good.
Awesome.
All right. See you, fellas.